Welcome to another episode of the Let's Be Honest podcast, Chaos and Clarity in Education, where we have authentic conversations with educational leaders who are transforming schools and challenging the status quo. What if school transformation doesn't begin in the superintendent's office, the principal's office, or even the classroom? What if it begins on a family's front porch? Today's guest believes that one of the most powerful and often overlooked school improvement strategies is building authentic relationships with students, families, and communities. His work challenges educators to move beyond asking, how do we get families involved? And instead ask, how do we become partners that families trust? We're honored to welcome educator, founder of Concentric Educational Solutions, and author of Concentricity, a blueprint for student support services, Dr. David Heiber. Now, let's turn it over to our co-hosts, Dr. John Nash and Dr. Linton Atkinson.
Welcome to the Let's Be Honest podcast, Chaos and Clarity in Education. I'm Dr. Linton Atkinson. Today, Dr. Heiber is with us. Before we discuss your book, Dr. Heiber, would you briefly share your educational journey and tell us what experiences led you to develop the philosophy of concentricity, putting students and families at the center of everything schools do?
No, I appreciate y'all both. Pleasure to be here. So what's interesting is that my journey kind of took a circular route to education. I never had the intention to be an educator. In high school, I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware, and I always wanted to be a history professor. I mean, that's kind of what I thought my journey was going to be, but in obviously in higher ed. But then my senior year in high school, my father, my grandfather, but he raised me, so I call him my father, had a heart attack Christmas shopping, and he died my senior year. And I was really good in track and field and cross country, had a lot of different scholarship offers. So it was going to be either a history professor or a lawyer. And then once he passed away, me and my mother, we lost everything, and she got diagnosed with lung cancer and brain tumors. And so while she was going through chemotherapy, I started doing a lot of things I had no business doing, and then ended up getting arrested. And I got sentenced to 8 years in prison. So I ended up going to prison. My mother passed away while I was in prison. And that's when I felt like I had to make a change. So I went ahead and get my GED and high school diploma in prison. And we wrote the judge. Judge let me out early, took 6 years off my sentence. And he let me out of prison August 9th of 1996. And I got to Lincoln University, who accepted me, the first HBCU, shout out to LU, accepted me. And I got up to Lincoln for freshman week, August 18th, 9 days later. And so once that happened, I majored in history and Black studies. And I thought I was going to go to law school, but my professor, Dr. Levi Waichuku, rest in peace, a good, amazing man from Nigeria. He told me maybe I might not be able to pass the bar with my multiple felonies. And so I decided to get a third major, education. And that's how I got into education.
Amazing story, man, and journey. Thank you so much for being with us. Yeah.
Thanks.
So, Dr. Heiber, every great book begins with a problem. What challenge in K through 12 education inspired you to write Concentricity, and why is this message especially important right now?
Yeah, so when I got out of Lincoln, I first got hired in Harford County. So you probably know about this, Harford County, right? And this is when they were looking for Black male teachers, but I didn't tell them about my felony. And so I get hired, and they're like, well, you probably need to go take your fingerprints. And I was like, well, damn, I better tell them about my felonies. And so I went out and I went in the backyard, came back in and said, look, I got to tell you something. And at this time, I had become Mr. Lincoln. I was a student teacher of the year. This is back when you had to be a student teacher. Right. And so I had the triple major and all that stuff. And they rescinded their offer to allow me to teach. And so about a week later, while I was at Lincoln, I used to write my judge, Norman Barron, old racist white judge. But in 16 years on the Delaware Supreme Court bench, he changed one person's sentence, and it was mine. And I would write him. He never wrote me back. And finally, I had run out of options. I didn't know what I was going to do. So I wrote him and I called Pam, who's his secretary, and she put me on hold, asked me to come in the next day. I went and I saw him for the very first time after since he had sentenced me to prison. And we cried and everything together. And long story short, he ended up speaking on my behalf to Baltimore City schools to get me a job. And Baltimore City said, do you have a sexual charge with a kid? No. Did I have a gun charge? No. Drug charge? No. They were like, come on, come work for it. It's Baltimore City. And you go to so at that point, I had already decided I was going to attend Temple University, and I was going to major in African American studies. I got accepted to Temple Law and Temple Grad School. And for African American studies, I studied under Molefe Asante. And Molefe Asante is the modern day father of Afrocentricity. And so when I was going, and I was living in Baltimore, I was traveling 121 miles each 3 days a week to go to Temple. And as we would talk, and I would stay at Dr. Asante's home, he asked me, what did I want to do? I said, well, I want to be a college professor. He said, you're already in K-12. And by this time, I had become an assistant principal. I only taught 1 year in the classroom and became an assistant principal. And he was like, why? What are you going to bring different to education that's not already done and liberate Black people? And we started talking. And so Afrocentricity is studying the phenomena of Africans and Africans in the diaspora at the center of social phenomena. And so all I did was say, okay, concentricity is putting students at the center of schools. Because what I saw is that schools were not getting anything marginally different than what they were supposed to get, particularly for Black and brown children, because it's never about the kids. We talk about it, but it's not. It's about bureaucracy. It's about politics. It's about economics, and it doesn't filter down to the kids. So I said, what do we do if we put students at the center? And hence concentricity.
Excellent, man. That title is pretty unique.
That was powerful.
Yes, right. Concentricity.
Yes.
Now, you just told us what it is. Now, help us to understand how it actually reshapes educational leaders as they think about supporting students in their successful academic years.
So it starts with the premise of your why, right? It's the why before the what and the how. And that's what concentricity pushes us to see. And it's forces us to be authentic and organic in who we are, who we bring ourselves to the work, and questioning every decision around that. And so, I've been fortunate in my career now is I have a lot of conversation, and John, you do too, right? Well, I mean, and Doc, you do as well with superintendents. And what happens now, and I care about them. I have a lot of close friends that are superintendents, but they're politicians now. I mean, think about it. They're politicians. Well, you just came from John, great brother, but he's a politician. And I get it, right? Sean in PG is a politician, right? And I went to college with Sean, right? You know what I mean? I took his old class. I took his old dorm room when he graduated. Right, so like all these things, right? But think about this. Let me give you this premise, and this from being principals. Principals to me are the most important position in the whole school district, and here's the reason why: they have to lead up, over, and down, right? And they don't get to hide behind processes because they see their constituents every day, which are the students. Central office they can go to central office, right? They don't see the students, and they don't see on a daily basis the outcomes or the consequences of their decisions or lack thereof. So, for example, a big buzzword now that we all know about is chronic absenteeism. Well, hell, chronic absenteeism is nothing different now than it was before. Students were just disengaged. 1 second, my son's coming. Yes, come on, Prince. Go, push her. Yes. Yeah, I'm on a podcast. Come say hi. Come here. You get no tour. You don't say hi. Come here. Just say hi real quick. I'll be right there, okay? Just shut the door. I'll be right there. I have to go to do my podcast. Go. I love you. Go. Oh, okay. My 5-year-old son, Princeton.
That's all right, brother.
And here's what's interesting. He's not shy. He goes on home visits with me and all that stuff. He's been extremely light skinned right now. But what was I at? I was, go ahead.
The politics.
The politics. All right, chronic absenteeism, for example, right? Chronic absenteeism, we say we want to get to students early. Early warning indicators, all those buzzwords, right? But why does it take 6, 8, 10 weeks to get a purchase order to do work to reduce chronic absenteeism that principals are asking for right now? But it takes 8 weeks. Students, I have worked with districts where students have passed away in the 8 weeks while the system is trying to respond. Go ahead, Bree. Let me finish this. While the system is trying to get themselves together. So it's not about students.
Yeah.
Just think about your everyday needs, and then when you push it up, it gets stuck. And it just waits there. So students aren't at the center. It's everything else. We have a policy for this. We have a procedure for that. Right? The system is stagnated and doesn't operate with the same sense of urgency that our students needed to respond.
So it's the policy, the politics, and the compliance nature.
Yes.
That holds things up.
Yes. And then what you have, I hear Dr. A, your accent. Where are you from?
Jamaica.
Right. So think about colonialism, right? Just because the Europeans left Africa, they left colonialism and they just put black people. That's urban education 101 right now. That's exactly what's happening in urban education. To take Baltimore, 16 superintendents since I was there since 1999. 16. And Sony was the longest, right, for 10 years.
Yes.
But think about the difference. We made marginal gains. 50% of the students are still fit. And that's just my hometown of Baltimore, right? Like, that is why Concentricity pushes it, right? It pushes, are you really about the kids? Right? I just came from a school district in Alabama, and this one is actually about the kids because he made something happen, right? The superintendent there, amazing brother, other than he's an alpha, so I won't hold that against him, but amazing brother there. He said, I'm tired of us coming at the end of every school year asking the same questions about the same methods that we used, right? He said, we're going to do something different. So even if it doesn't work, we're going to come back next year and say, we tried something different and it didn't work, right? So we literally are visiting 1,600 incoming freshmen before they step foot in. So every incoming freshman in the district is going to get a visit, a proactive visit about what the challenges is before they walk into school August 10th.
That is different.
Yeah. He turned the purchase order because you can't do purchase order. You can't do work without a purchase order, right? He turned it around in 3 days.
That's amazing.
Right? That's the type of leadership. That's the type of leadership. Because he's from there. He graduated from there, right? He lives there, right? He didn't parachute back, right? So like that's the thought, right? And that's what Concentricity pushes. Right, because it's not just about the activity, right? It's that, like, people know me for home visits. Like, I'm 400,000 or 500,000 home visits in across the country, right? Over 17 years, like from the South to the North, Detroit, DC. When Berry Farms was in DC, rural Mississippi, when there's in the shotgun homes where there's dirt floor, Detroit that looks like post Katrina without the Katrina. Right, like all these different things, right? Think about Brooklyn way back in the day when people didn't want to. It was literally, unsafe to walk in and stuff like that. And what we found across all those things is students just want to feel connected, and they want to feel that it's authentic. And so that's what Concentricity brings out.
So true. So because students don't care what you know until they know that you care.
Absolutely.
In authenticity, no pun intended, trumps ethnicity.
Drop the mic on that one.
You can be a bullshit black person, bullshitting black kids. And guess what? This is the great thing about kids, and this is what principals understand more than anybody else. They don't give a damn about your title, your degrees. They see you, if you're faking it, before you see yourself.
Absolutely.
That's what it forces us to do. And I've just seen it now. I'm on this thing now is that I'm on this LinkedIn kick, right? So and I don't know why, but it's just bothering me. Is that everyone posts their representative on LinkedIn like they're living their best lives. Like when I'm on LinkedIn, I'm like, well, damn, they really doing something special. I'm presenting here, I'm a keynote here and stuff like that. So what I did is I said, I want to give a 7-day challenge. I want for 7 days, whoever wants to take up the challenge, put your worst professional moments. Highlight your worst professional moments.
Powerful.
Crickets. Ain't no one want to talk about that, right? Like, because we want to, well, Paul Laurence Dunbar says it, right? We wear the mask that grins and lies. Yeah. So now I'm boycotting all these speakers and conferences and stuff like that. We get the same speakers at the different conferences making money who talk about the work, but haven't done the work in years or decades. Right? Like it's crazy. How the hell can you go to that many conferences and speak when there's kids that are not eating?
So you're making the money.
Yeah. So yeah, man, y'all caught me on one today. What I went through for the past, what I experienced for the past 5 days, man.
So that's all right, sir. That's why we're here. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
absolutely. So Dr. Heiber, we're going to transition from leadership to student support services, but we're going to come back to leadership. So we noticed that many schools have counselors, psychologists, social workers, and interventionists. What separates schools that simply have student support services from those that have an integrated student support system?
Oh, definitely the outcome, right? So the student support services to me is the qualitative narrative of what happens that you just have to quantify. And we're gonna have to play that back so I can steal that and use it at some other point, because I'll forget it at some point. But what it really does, the student support, it's the qualitative piece. So there's a book, and it's an older book called Dry Long Sew, right? And Tally's Corner. So what I did was I took concentricity is an approach that's grounded in ethnography. Right. And what it forces all those siloed compartments. And think about it even as when we were principals, it's not that information isn't known about students. It's siloed because the school is not. Now you might have ILT teams, right? But you meet every 2 weeks, right? Or every whatever that cadence is. You have to integrate it on a ground level. All those different people that you mentioned, whether psychologists, social workers, clinicians, you get deans, nurses, custodians. There's a superintendent, Elena Zachary Ross in Ypsilanti. Before I had the opportunity to work with her district. Before I did any work with teachers, leadership, she had me do work with her transportation and custodial staff. Think about the transportation staff are the first frowns or the first smiles that the students will see, and the last smiles and frowns that they may see. And what she wanted, she put her bus drivers on her core team. Whether you call it MTSS, whether you call it ILT, SLT, OPP, whatever we call it these days, right? She literally put her transportation on her student support teams. Because they had so much information of what they saw picking students up and what they heard.
That is interesting.
She was the first one that ever did that.
Yeah.
Like I've done nurses before, but I never did the custodial staff on my student support team and leadership team and the transportation staff. It was brilliant.
And just think about it. They set the tone for your entire day. As soon as the kids walk into that bus, that's going to be the determining factor as to whether or not they're going to have a good day or a bad day.
Yes.
It's amazing how far just a simple compliment will take you.
We did this study while we were, when I was CEO of Concentric, we did this study and we quantified the student behavior or student perception. It was student perception. 27 positive affirmations throughout the day changed their behavior. if they heard 27 positive affirmations throughout the day, and then people say, well, 27 is a lot. Not in the course of student pickup, student entrance, transitions, cafeteria, right? You can get to that 27.
You sure can, because there are so many adults that can get you to that 27.
Correct.
And like you said, you got to get the adults involved, especially those who see the kids from the very beginning of the day, from before they get on campus.
Yes.
To actually make sure the day is off to a good start.
Intentionality.
So then what you do on a granular level, the way that you can bring together and integrate a student support services is because we always say data, but data is not just numbers, it's the stories behind the numbers. And so what we did early on when I was creating Concentricity is we just created a student support service dashboard and we just connected the dots. So you looked at the number of sessions weekly that clinicians had, the number of office referrals, the number of nurses referrals, the number of disciplinary or short-term suspensions. You looked at tardies, but you literally looked at their metrics. I guess in business we call them KPIs now, of each department in your building, and the numbers then led to greater stories. So if you had a high number of social work referrals or high number of nurse referrals, and then high absences, you just start looking at correlation, right? And so what dissertation 101, correlation doesn't mean causation. However, you can start creating the story around the numbers.
Awesome. So you're just giving us some ideas in terms of principal moves that leaders can make to ensure adults support students holistically.
Yes.
Now, of course, some of these can be implemented as soon as I go back to school, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everyone wants to implement something new, but some initiatives are short-lived because of the lack of systems and structures.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to someone who is about to implement something to support students to ensure that systems and structures can actually make sure it's sustainable?
So when I first started Concentric, I created Concentric. Concentric is just a company name for Concentricity. Like, I didn't create a business. I created a framework, and then the business came from it. And then the business ended up becoming whatever it became. And now I kind of branched off and did redemption, so I can do something a little bit more radical with it. But what you got to do is, because it's not a program, Concentricity is not a program, it's a framework. And it's not even a framework, it becomes the DNA of your building, right? Mm-hmm. So for example, something as salient as a home visit. So people will say, do a home visit for chronic absenteeism. A home visit doesn't change chronic absenteeism, right? It identifies the barriers, right? But what you can do is, from that singular outcome of a home visit, I'll give you a tangible example. A district that we work, I can say it now because she's no longer there. Baltimore City Schools that we work with, right? I remember sitting on the 4th floor, and we had done 844 home visits for vacant properties, right? And we did that because we took pictures of the vacant properties, and we knew it. They never looked at the data. They sent us out to the same property over and over again. Right. So it became an activity, not who you are and what you do. So it goes back to a long way to answer the question, is fundamentally start with your why as a school principal. What is your why? And it has to be authentic. And then you build your systems and structures around your why. And then you align yourself with your staff has to align with your why. Right? So when I start working with the school, what I do now is I won't even do a home visit for a school, right? I'll leave that to Concentric and other people. I spend the first 30 minutes with the principal. And after that, I either walk out or I say, we can do something together. Because the principal is I've never seen a good school with a bad principal. I just haven't. I've seen a good classroom with a bad principal, but I've never seen it's an art. And a lot of people who even are promoted, they weren't good principals, right? Like, I'm old now, right? So I'm 50, but I remember I was a 24-year-old principal, 24, and I was horrible. I was a horrible principal, but I had old heads around me. My assistant principals had been in the system longer than I had been alive, and they taught me everything. But do you remember when you actually? This is before. I don't want to talk negatively about anybody's program, but this is before you had like principal prep programs, right? So before the new leaders and TNTP and all that, this is when you were a teacher, department head, assistant principal, and then principal, right? And you learn something at each step of the way about yourself and about the building and about children and about families and about leadership. Now we just microwave them. Hell, you're making people who superintendents had never been in a classroom.
You said it. Wow. He just went there, Dr. Nash.
Yes, he said it, and I've seen it.
I'm like, yo, how can you be a superintendent if you have never even been a principal? I don't get it. But I'm old and crotchety now. So I get it. Like I'm just old and grouchy now, right? But you can't. To me, you can't. I don't think you can.
So, Dr. Heiber, across the country, educators are facing increasing behavioral mental health and attendance challenges.
Yes.
So we talked about structures and systems, but how can schools proactively address those issues within structures and systems and maintain high academic expectations?
So I do believe that you have to individualize instruction across the board, that every single student should have a support plan. I think they're calling it Portrait of a Graduate now. And like, there's a lot of different things that and they change names, right? But it's fundamentally knowing each student and what they need. And you're not going to get it 100%, right? Because if we could have gotten it right, maybe we would have gotten it right. But what I do believe is that we waste a lot of precious time that can be used to get to students proactively. And by the time it starts, the school year starts, we're reacting, right? And students and getting to students is really challenging. So what I would encourage districts and schools to do is, like, right now, I know people are planning instructionally, they're doing their master schedule, but you can get to every single student in your building right now. I'm not talking about a phone call. I'm talking about going to their homes. And I'm not talking about having them come up to the school. That's one way. I'm talking about going to their homes and sitting with them. What do you need? How can we be supportive before school starts? It sounds simple, but it's grassroots. And that's the only way that I've seen it worked. And then you build your structures and your systems and your interventions based upon what they're telling you. Students and families will tell you what they need if you have the authenticity to hear it.
Oh, but Dr. Heiber, I have limited time, limited finances, just limited resources. And you're talking about going to schools to see 1,600 students before they get on my campus. Mm-hmm. How can I make that happen?
So it's possible, right? And so here's the reason, right? So getting to students early is like the IRS. You pay now, you pay later. Right. Wow. So if you're saying, okay, I'm going to find 5 kids, right? I want to put eyes on 5 kids. And even if we're talking about, let's go the charter routes, right? We're talking about enrollment. Enrollment drives numbers drive finances, right? So I'm going to dedicate $25,000. That's only 2 students, right? Depending upon where you are, that's 2 students. If I capture 2 students, I'm going to dedicate $25,000 to pay people either internally or externally to put eyes on students and families during the summertime. Either you pay the 25 on the front end, or you lose 50 kids on the back end and you're losing FTEs. You're losing staff members. So you're going to pay, right? It's just, what are you going to, or you just reappropriate instead of buying sweatshirts instead of incentivizing with bagels and all that stuff, right? You have to reallocate the money for the greatest return on investment. A lot of the spending that people do is not aligned with students. It's aligned with vanity. Like we want a lot of paraphernalia and all that stuff, right? Like, let's get the kids connected and where they're staying in now. So you can allocate if you allocate $25,000 as a hell. Let's say you allocate $10,000 as a principal, right? And which is in the flexibility for most principals, like $10,000, depending upon school-based budgeting, on the front end, and you increase your enrollment by 50 to 75. 50 to 70. If you increase your enrollment by 20 kids at $10,000, right? That's $200,000. That's a literacy position for a $10,000 investment, right? So I know you in Brooklyn, right? Jay, and I know you in Florida, John, right? But if we wanted to really put math to it, right? Wichita just did the 30-year anniversary, Jay-Z, right? And he said, I took 25 and flipped it to the 50, 52, 100 to 250, 250, you know what I mean? Like, you flip it.
Just flip it.
It's economics.
Got it.
So, Dr. Heiber, looking ahead, what do you believe will be the biggest shift in student support services over the next 5 to 10 years? And how should educational leaders prepare today?
I think that we have to go back to our why. Our why has got to be students. And the honest question when we're in meetings, whether it's at the school level or it's a central office, is this what students need the most? Not what we think students need the most. Is this what they're telling us they need the most? Right? And it's the data point. When you're collecting ethnographic study, I'm not just talking through home visits. I'm talking about like in your building, and I'm not talking about focus groups. And you're talking to students over the course of a time. You're literally doing an ongoing needs assessment and resource mapping for your school and your districts. Right? Then what you can start doing is you can start aligning those resources and interventions, dividing, categorizing them as internal or external supports, and then start determining whether or not what supports work well together. So the example I always use is Gerald Levert. I'm like, oh, what killed Gerald Levert? People be like, well, obesity. No, what happened was he was over medicated. He had medicine for his heart, medicine for his high blood pressure, medicine for this. No one ever asked, do those medicines work collectively together and in harmony? So a school, particularly, I know your school, like the schools in Florida, like 3,000-4,000 kids. You might have, I know when I was a principal, we had like 60 organizations in the building. And, Organization 5 didn't know what Organization 55 was doing. And we were touching the same students. It's the interconnection of it. And a lot of times less is more. And so I think, to answer the question in a salient manner, get back down to basics. And we saw that during the pandemic. When I was with Concentric, we branched off and we started doing tutoring. And our tutoring gains outperformed every tutoring company that the district had. And people said, how did that happen? Well, our staff members, our PSAs, professional student advocates, that I recruited from HBCUs and from the D9, they came from the very same communities that they were serving. They had the tangible skill set from an HBCU, and they gave a damn. And so instead of putting a student on a platform for tutoring, you had a professional student advocate work with that student. We outperformed all tutoring companies by probably like 14, 15 percentage points. But that's only because we connected the person with the student, not with the machine. Think about now. Think about what was it? Maybe like 10 years ago, it was how can we integrate technology, smartphones and everything like that. And now 10 years later, everybody has to put their smartphone in a bag. Right? It's
That's
so
something to think about. Yep.
You just go back to basic stuff. People connect to people. They don't connect to technology.
Wow. You are absolutely right, man. You're making me think about things that we do daily, but I never think about, because my students do put their phones in the bag.
Mm-hmm.
So if our school leaders and superintendents, our listeners, should walk away with anything today, I know they're going to walk away with two things you've been saying over and over. Go back to your why and do those home visits.
Yes.
Now, you've done quite a number of home visits, and it sounds like you're busy out there making moves in education. What is it that you do for self-care so that you can continue to do what you're doing?
So, what I've committed myself now to is, instead of just trying to save other people's children, I want to raise my own. So I blew it for my first set of kids because I was doing so much work. So now for Princeton that you just saw, and Anaya and my fiance Ashley, my self-care is just spending time with my family. And that has made a difference. I'm down 23 pounds. I'm back to my running weight in college. I run every single day. When I want to take a break, I take a break. And I refuel with my family. My family became my why. And that's what fuels me every day. It's every single day. Like last week, I had the opportunity to drive with Princeton across country from Baltimore to Dallas. And I'm 50. I was like, what am I, road tripping to Miami? Like I'm in undergrad? But nah, I mean, I was able to stop at in Nashville. We did the Blue Ridge Mountains. I took them to Fisk, Tennessee State, went to Memphis, Lorraine Hotel. I mean, it was just powerful. So yeah. So my self-care is my family. So.
Dr. Heiber, this podcast, the message you shared with us was absolutely powerful. Thank you for joining us on the Let's Be Honest, Chaos and Clarity in Education.
No, I appreciate it so much. You guys spit hot fire like Dylon. Like that. No, I appreciate y'all. Keep doing y'all stuff. I appreciate it so much. Continue and bring guests on that will speak authentically. I appreciate y'all.
We appreciate you as well.
All right, y'all be blessed.
All right.